Alexander Haig say, you know, in absence of everyone in the country, I am now in charge. Remember when he did that? And then he was gone about 2 weeks later. He said, you can't say that.
In the absence of everybody else.
Yeah.
This is Galen. I believe all counselors are unmiked and ready to go.
Hello? This is Craig.
How are you guys hearing us? Let's try a sound check.
We can hear you fine, Kevin.
Equally. Jake? Down here, yeah, I can hear them. Michael? Yep, great. Excuse me for a second here. We're still waiting for Doug to join us. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Doug, yeah?
There's Jake.
Yeah, I saw him for a second.
Can I hear Martin?
Yep, I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Very good job, guys. Voice volume seems to be very good. Is there anybody else that has any issues with audio before we get started?
Got a copy? This is Jeff.
Good, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks. Breaker 19, Kevin.
Thank you, Randy. Oh, okay. Is Doug here? Doug, you in? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So let's call the roll, and we have 7 out of 7 counselors in the meeting, 3 of which are in person, and 4 of which are on the Zoom meeting for Wednesday, April 1st at 6 o'clock. I'll let Craig lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead, Craig.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
The first item of business this evening is the public hearing for the approval of the marijuana license for Northern Maine Flower. And at this point in time, maybe we'll allow anybody with comments to open up with questions on the public hearing. And so maybe we should mute the mics on the counselors for a second and see if there's any public comments, and we'll allow a couple minutes for people to respond.
Kevin, I'm going to unmute everyone so to allow for public comment. So just bear with me one moment.
Yep, take your time. We're all new in this, and we're all in this together. Well, while we're doing that, is there anybody present in the room from the public that wants to speak in person?
There is not.
Okay, thank you. While we're doing that, is there anybody present in the room from the public that wants to speak in person?
There is not.
Okay, thank you. So what's going on with the delay there? It seems like there's a 10-second echo. I'm not sure why that's there. I suspect.
Someone's watching from somewhere, and then probably also had the audio coming from a different device. They probably called in.
No, I got it on my iPad.
Oh, you got it on your iPad?
Yeah.
hit or miss.
Okay, Martin, if you were looking at item 1 and stuff there, you can walk us through the motion and your paragraph that you've got written there.
Will do, Kevin. Thank you. The Presque Code Office has reviewed all documents concerning an application submitted on February 28th, 2020 by owner Benito Carrasco Jr. and his representative Peter Haynes for a medical marijuana retail store to be located at 540 Main Street. In addition, all documents were reviewed by department heads, and on March 12th, 2020, no negative issues were identified. There was no one speaking out in opposition, in other words. An inspection was performed at the location by the code enforcement officer and was found to be adequate for the use intended. No additional issues were found. They did issue a certificate of occupancy. Therefore, the application substantially meets the standards of Chapter 59A of Presque's Adult Use and Medical Marijuana Business Ordinance. The recommended motion is to issue a license to Benito Carrasco Jr., operating as Northern Maine Flower LLC, to operate a medical marijuana retail store at 540 Main Street.
Thank you. Does any counselor wish to comment on the motion before we make the motion? Is there any discussion?
No.
I'd entertain the motion then.
Mr. Chairman, I would motion that we issue a license to Benito Carrasco Jr., operating Northern Maine Flower LLC, to operate a medical marijuana retail store at 540 Main Street in Presque.
Second.
The second was by,
Jeff.
okay, thank you. There's a motion on the floor to approve a license of medical marijuana to Benito Carrasco Jr., operating as Northern Maine Flower, to operate a medical marijuana store at 540 Main Street. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we're going to ask for a roll call, so I'm going to call your names and then please say yes or no. Down at our other site, they ask yay or nay, and it's difficult to hear that. So, Doug? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Michael? Yes. Jake? Yes. Craig?
Yes.
Brandy?
Yes.
And I vote yes also, so that's 7-0 unanimous. The item passes. Thank you. Item 2 is to request to repass the ordinance due on the pawnbroker license. This would be for, I believe, Ben's Trading Post. Martin, you want to walk us through this one?
Sure, Council, what's in the packet that was sent out is the existing chapter. The last time it was passed was 2016. So you're seeing that this is the existing ordinance that we currently have on the books, certified by the clerk that was present at the time. It's a brief one, but basically it outlines the pawnbrokers ordinance. Only 8 sections to this. We're not recommending any changes at this time. We did have put the notice in the paper that's included in that, put by our city clerk, Thomas King. That's included with that, and we have not received any written or telephonic comments on this policy.
Just as a point of information, this is under public hearing too, so do we need to open up the mics and ask if there's any public comments?
I would recommend that, yes.
Okay. So let's unmute the microphones, and if there's any people that want to comment on this in the public comment section of this hearing, you can talk to us now.
Are you on yet?
I recommend that. Okay. The microphones, and if there's any people that want to comment on I think we have 22 participants, so now's your pawnbrokers ordinance. Give it 20 more seconds. Hearing no further comments, I'd like to close the public hearing and stuff on the Chapter 23 pawnbrokers ordinance and ask for a motion by Councilor.
Mis-
Kevin, there just needs to be a correction. It has Bev Labby listed on there. It should be Tom King.
So noted. Thank you, Mike. Is there any other comments, or would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, to repass Chapter 23 pawnbrokers ordinance.
Second by Mike.
Been moved by Jeff and seconded by Mike to repass the Chapter 23 pawnbrokers ordinance. Is there any further discussion? And so I'll call the roll. Jack?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
I vote yes also, but 7-0 with no opposition. Item 2 passes. I guess we're also now up to citizen comments. So again, is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on something that is a city matter? Please state your name and your address, and then we'll try to do this one at a time. So go ahead. I guess we're also now up to citizen comments. So again. It looks like there aren't any public comments for this evening, so unless you have an objection, I'd like to close the public citizen comment section and move on to the consent agenda. Council, we have item 3 in front of us, which is to approve the minutes from the March 4th, 2020 meeting. Also, to approve the 2020 warrants totaling $1,396,895.57. Approve the employment agency licensing for Main Staffing Group. Approve the employment agency license for Temple Employment Services. Approve the pawnbroker license for Ben's Trading Post. Approve the taxi cab service for Rustic Taxi and for Town Taxi and for Kearney's Taxi. Those are at 8, 9, and 10. Approve the bowling alley license for Northern Lanes Incorporated. I think I would entertain them to be together or broken out separately. Does anybody wish to discuss these separately?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve on the consent agenda items 3 through 11.
Second.
Is there anybody that would like to break them out separate? Hearing none, then we will approve a motion for approving items 3 through 11 as one item.
Yes.
Jake,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Yes, and I vote yes also, so that's 7 out of 7, so no opposition there. The next item of business is to approve the drug forfeitures, item 12, and Martin can speak to us briefly on that one.
As council, this is another one that has been processed through the court system, so attached is a letter from the district attorney's office that this person has been prosecuted and agreed to the forfeiture that was associated with illegal activity. The amount of the forfeiture is $440. So this is the third month in a row we've had drug forfeitures, and I think that there's going to be some, I think there's going to be 2 additional ones next month also.
Martin, I'm barely hearing you, so you might want to speak up a little bit towards the microphone next time. Is there any other discussion on item 12?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to authorize Chairperson Kevin Freeman to sign the approval of transfers.
Second.
Motion by Randy and seconded by Jeff, I believe.
Correct.
Okay. We'll call the roll to the vote. Doug? Jeff?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes also, 7-0. Okay, I'll be down to sign that at some point.
Thank you.
The next item of business is the Bicentennial Parade route, and I would open up the floor first to Martin and then to anybody else that wants to talk about this that may be able to tell us about the Bicentennial route.
Is Kim on the Zoom tonight?
I believe she is.
I am, can you hear me?
That's great, Kim, thank you.
The Bicentennial Parade will take place as part of the Crown of Maine Balloon Fest. And the final judging portion of it will be as the floats go by the grandstand at the fairgrounds. In the Bicentennial Committee, it was suggested that there actually be a route so that we didn't ask participants to just have a float that goes around the racetrack. And it was also suggested that we try to perhaps mirror another historic parade route, which is that of the fair, when the World of Mirth used to come to town and unload at the train tracks down by Riverside. And of course, it's on a Saturday, August 29th, and the public market will be going that day, so we can't actually start in that particular lot. What we decided was to start it by lining up the floats on Ryan Street, which is actually the little road between Dunkin' Donuts and MPG. So they would line up facing away from Main Street and facing down towards Chapman. And then the parade will actually begin going from Chapman to Riverside to State Street, go down State Street to the back entrance of the fair, go around the grandstand, the racetrack in front of the grandstand. At that point, the parade would be done, but they will return to Ryan Street to pick up their prizes.
Mr. Chairman, this is something the committee has worked diligently on the last few months to have this event, and it has been done in concert with the folks at the Balloon Festival, and they believe it's something that'll add to their event as well, and to also give this connection to the 200th anniversary for the state as well. So I think it'll be a fairly popular event, and look forward to it.
The theme is Days Gone By, and we have several different categories that participants will be competing in. Best antique, best historic dress, that sort of thing. There's no fee to be in the parade. It's going to be run very similar to how the chamber runs their parade, and in fact, we more or less used their entry form as our template, if you will. And Lenny's the executive director of the chamber, is on our Bicentennial committee, so we relied heavily on her for her expertise on this as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the Bicentennial Parade route.
Second by Mike.
Tim, thank you very much. That was very clear, and it's great to see you on video instead of a blank screen like I have. I'll call the roll for the vote. Doug?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Yes, I vote yes also, 7-0. Thank you very much. The next item is item 14 under old business is our goal setting session. So this was to be a report on what we had done in meetings so far, and I think what we have done is accomplished a lot via email. With the new social distancing, we have been able to email council suggestions as well as gathering staff suggestions. And we have a list of about 61 items here. So this is purely for discussion. How would you guys like to see this? Obviously, we've got to take this down to a working level of 10 or 12 things. So, well, anybody have any suggestions would like to start this discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Craig. I think last year, of course, it was a much different time, and of course we had all of our staff as well as us were able to be present for that meeting. Would it be possible that we send this out to all of the staff as well as the council, and that we work on it interactively together with their input to help make some of those decisions on what holds more interest for each department, and then use that to narrow it down some, and then maybe we can compile the list of the votes, if you will, or the interest in the items, and then work on the ones that kind of make it to the top collectively after we do that.
Martin, what do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Some of the thoughts that we've had is either working collectively or doing maybe a survey tool that we could create and put all of the 60 different items together and collect votes, maybe answer some questions. I like the idea of having an interactive format. So unfortunately, we were unable to do it in person, but I think if we did it online, I think that'd be a good way to accomplish that. I don't want to lose, just because we're in certain circumstances, I don't want to lose any pace on moving forward with some of these goals. I think that's important for us to do as a body.
What do you guys think of? One of the interesting ideas last year was we were all in one room and we took some Sharpie markers and we all had 5 votes each or 10 votes each, and we put them next to the things, and then we saw how many votes we had at each line item. What if we put something like that up in a public space someplace that we could all go to? Like, could go on in there and look, stand in front of the thing and make some of the staff to do it, counselors to do it. What do you guys think of that?
If everyone is comfortable using their email, I mean, I can just as easily send out a survey with all these on them, and you can pick, you know, your favorites if you'd like, or, you know, we can, I don't know, just to keep everyone from going to one spot.
Great idea.
Which
Yeah,
one,
it makes
Grant?
sense to me. I think there needs to be a little bit of work to kind of consolidate all these. There's a lot of duplication, so somebody needs to just spend the time to sit down and work similar items together and come up with a list of whatever it is, 25 or 30, and then we can do it by email.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a few that I think would probably fall under economic development from the looks of it, just rolling through. I know we all kind of expressed that, and I think there's probably a lot we could rope into that category.
Yeah, I mean, City Hall's there a few times. There's duplicates on some rec things, like, yep.
You know, I think I'd like to just say the people that participated so far, thank you very much for those comments, and those are terrific goals. And it's not saying that all 61 aren't important, but we do have to work, I think, on something in a reasonable timeline, and somewhere around 10 or 12, probably, or 15 makes sense. So is there any other counselor that would like to speak about this?
This is Jeff. So should we just like make a note of, say, 15 of each of these, 15 of these goals? Or should we wait to try to consolidate this list, or just kind of make our own consolidations? How would you like to go about that?
Jeff, I would agree with Mike that we could probably consolidate these with a little input. Maybe Mike and then Martin and Galen perhaps work on bringing this down to a more tighter list, and then email that out to everybody by Monday.
Agreed.
Agreed.
It's fine with me. Is that a good time for you, Martin? Okay.
Because we're kind of thought we'd be at the library a couple weeks ago to do this, and I think it's remarkable we have this list right now, but let's jump onto this and work on it next week and get it out to everybody, and hopefully everybody can respond by Friday.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, Kevin.
Yes. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on this, or we move to the next item? Okay, let's go to item 15, and I'd like to give Michael the floor to talk about the City Hall update.
Yeah, sure. The city put a request for proposals out to the Star Herald on March 18th and 25th, advertising the project and requesting interested architects, engineers, and designers to submit a proposal. There was supposed to be a pre-submittal meeting tomorrow, the 2nd. That's been postponed just due to everything that's going on. We're going to figure out a way to probably do a combination of that, both electronically and in person. We're requesting proposals from design professionals by April 30th, with the plan to engage one to help us design the City Hall renovations.
Awesome. Thank you for that report, sir. Doug, you're on that group and stuff. Can you add anything? Would you like to talk?
No, Mike's kind of got it there. We're just gonna push it forward a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to take place in the next couple of weeks or so. Under new business now, we'll move to the COVID-19 situation, and we've asked some people to comment from the public and from our health institutions. We're happy to have them join us this evening. But I'll start with Martin first, and then we'll unmute the other microphones.
Thanks, Chairman. Obviously, what I prepared for discussion completely changed yesterday. So one thing that we did have a department head meeting today and talk about how these changes will impact businesses and residents of Presque Isle. One thing that Galen has put together, and I've shared on Facebook, are guidelines, excuse me, based upon the square footages that the governor set, was what the businesses can do for permitting people to use those different facilities. So it's all based on square footage. So we put those guidelines out. We're using our assessing software to track that, to make sure that get the correct amount of people in. There's also, of course, I was happy to see that the governor's order did include outdoor recreation, hiking, fishing was included, hopefully for the springtime, and regular outdoor activities. So I was happy to see that included in that amount also. So as for a city to respond to this, obviously we're going to continue to share information from Maine CDC and CDC also, and encourage social distancing. That's the largest message that we have here. And Kevin, I do believe that we have some people online that could talk from our medical institutions in town.
Yes, that's great. I'd love to have Galen unmute those mics and they have the floor.
Who's first?
What's on second?
My apologies. I apply an IT role as well as Economic Development Director. I just wanted to let you all know that my department staff, we are trying to prepare to do a business inventory list, and then also provide City Council with updated status report regarding the economic conditions of the city. So we're planning to start working on that the rest of this week as well as next week, and hopefully have a report generated for council review hopefully by the end of next week.
He did prepare a brief summary.
Thank you, sir.
Galen, you can hand the mic over to the next person that wants to speak or unmute them.
All right. Everyone's unmuted?
No, Greg LaFrancois is not unmuted yet. We need to hear from him. There you go, Greg. You're on. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So, there's a lot of, probably the best thing
Got to speak up. The volume's really low. It's low volume, Greg.
Let's see there, one more. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, I learned something. So, I can talk about a lot of things. Maybe it's better if I take your questions and get a sense of where your interests are, and I can fill all that in if you wish. What is your preference?
Well, first of all, Northern Light Health is part of a chain of hospitals in Maine, and I know that they've had outdoor testing downstate, and I see that there's some here in Presque Isle. Would you like to speak about the outdoor testing first?
Sure. So, we have drive-through testing. We generally do about 1 to 4 tests a day, so it really doesn't get utilized that much. Not a surprise because we really don't have anyone to test up here yet. We've done over 70 tests and none have come back positive. We do have 19 that are that are at state labs, so we're waiting for results on those tests. Downstate, the volumes have been low also. There's, throughout the state, although, you know, we do have 344 tests, 344 confirmed cases, they're really spread out, and, you know, Cumberland County and York's get hit pretty hard, but it's not what you're seeing in New York where cars are lined up to get through these things. A lot of that's because the testing criteria is very stringent as to who we test. But in terms of the capacity, we up here in the county have a ton of capacity to test, and so we will not run out of testing capacity. You know, the limitation right now is the lab's ability to process all the tests. The good news for us is our lab down there, ALI in Bangor, just came online and approved to run those tests, and we get an 2-hour turnaround on those tests, so it's really fast. The rate limiting step is really getting the test down to them, and we've actually increased our courier volume going downstate with our tests. So does that kind of answer your question, or do you have other questions about it?
No, yes, sir. That's the first one that I had. And if there's Michael or any other counselor that would like to ask Ray the question that the public might be interested in listening to the answer or the response, go ahead.
This is Craig Green. Another question for you. I realize that on top of dealing with the COVID-19 virus, that you're also dealing with regular ailments and flu and things of this nature. How are you positioned at this point with other stressors on the system here in Presque especially, as far as ease of accepting more patients should this become more urgent than it currently is for us in the area with having people actually infected? Are you full of people in the hospital with other ailments at this point, or are you fairly able to accept more capacity of patients?
We're in great shape. We have lots of capacity, but I gotta tell you that all my planning is done for Aroostook County as a whole, and so I work very closely with both Cary, with Northern Maine Medical Center, and to a lesser extent down at Holt. And so when we talk about capacity, I'm adding their numbers in as well.
Okay.
But we are the absolute largest. Our facility has the most flexibility to expand. So let me tell you quickly, you know, we did shut down all of the discretionary services, all the outpatient services, and what we did is we took all that staff and we cross-trained them into the jobs they would be doing if we were flooded with COVID patients, but also to take care of our daily business as well. So the last 2 weeks has really been all about cross-training. It's really an incredible thing to see in our place. And so we have reconfigured the hospital inside. So we've doubled our ICU beds by making some facility changes. We've also expanded our inpatient capacity into conference rooms, which we'll be able to utilize. And so this facility, I honestly think we are in great shape. In the worst case model, because we've modeled all this, and I have a sense of what day of this outbreak we're going to see various volumes, and we've been modeling that. We're building our expectations around that model. You know, we're going to get pretty far through this before we have to start thinking about moving patients south. And but that will happen. It'll happen out around day 60 of the outbreak. We're going to have to start thinking about where we move patients as a county, not just as a hospital. But we were able to segregate patients, so the infected will be segregated from non-infected. You know, we're really in great shape at this point.
And what?
Ray, can you talk at all towards the planning and what there is to expect for the community? I think a lot of people feel a false sense of security because we don't have any confirmed cases up here. But you know, just looking at the models, I know it's going to be different because we have less density of people. But there's still an expectation, from what I've read, that, you know, there will be significant cases up here.
Right. So, you know, we've got Mercy down in Portland, and so we've got some experience with how patients arrive and how the surprising thing for folks. Well, first off, let me talk about the false sense of security. It is a false sense of security. I stress out every time I drive by Walmart, Lowe's in particular. Those are two places where I see a lot of cars. And as I think of the county, our risk, we have such low risk because we don't have these big places for people to congregate. And we've been doing social distancing on the same timeline as the southern part of the state. So we've been fortunate. We've been doing self-distancing when there really was no threat up here, and I think that's going to serve us well. I honestly do think we're going to have a much flatter curve than anybody else. But I do worry about the places where people congregate. That also include some of our larger employers as they're bringing their staff on at those larger employers. We're just hoping that they're being really careful with social distancing because there are models that when you get out into day 60, 70, 80, they spike up dramatically, and that's a concern. So what will surprise people is we're going to have a long, gradual tail. We're going to get 5 weeks into this before anybody, of inpatients, before we have any real stress on the system. It's just going to be onesies and twosies coming in and being discharged. And we'll definitely be able to handle that. Once we get out, you know, to I've got kind of a note for myself here. Once we get out to week 6 and 8, that's when it gets real. And our facilities will be primarily COVID patients being treated in the facility. And what we'll be looking for, and I've got a meeting tomorrow with the Maine Emergency Management Agency and the other 3 facilities, and we're going to talk about alternate sites of care so that once our facilities are full, there are other places that we can take patients to. I'll tell you, Tim Crowley out at Northern Maine Community College is an absolute rock star, an absolute rock star. He's already set his dorms up to be that kind of a site, and he's out there looking at options for food and so forth with patients. And that's one of those things we'll discuss tomorrow. But there, you know, as I look at it, when we get out to the latter weeks of this outbreak, when we get into like the June time frame, that's when we're going to see a lot of patients being sent to alternate care sites, not necessarily hospitals. And they'll be quarantined in those areas as they're being treated because they'll have symptoms at that point. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, big time. I mean, just so the public knows, like, I'm a young 38-year-old that has completely isolated myself because I'm extremely high risk. If I get a cold, I almost end up on a ventilator. So, you know, you hear a lot about how this is so dangerous for older people. Well, here's a 38-year-old guy that has a pretty strong feeling that if he gets it and it impacts him seriously, that my outcome will be very bad. So, just...
And it's not just for the old anymore. In the U.S., we're experiencing much more infections in younger populations now than they witnessed overseas. So yeah, it is. Isolation matters. This is really no joke. And if it's not for yourself, it should be for the people around you. You know, I'm most concerned about our 1,000 employees because all of my work is based on them showing up. And that means that they have childcare, which we are struggling with getting childcare for all of our staff members right now. That means that they're not infected. And we do get some pushback on folks that come to our hospital, and I suspect it's the same at other hospitals where they don't want a mask. And that's a concern because if I allow them into our facility and they infect my staff, we are dramatically hurting our ability to take care of the community. So those are, we've got to take the social distancing serious if we want to get through this thing and have any kind of normal summer, to be honest.
What day are we in? You mentioned about different days and projecting forward, but where do we stand today on your timeline of days so that we kind of have a sense of that?
We're not on it. We haven't started, and my timeline starts when we have our first hospital admission in the county for COVID. That's when we start the clock.
So you're talking like 60 days from that day, not any time
Correct.
Today. Okay, thank you.
Correct. And it will be, and there's really no model for us to look at. I really do think that the county is going to be different in the way that patients present. And I'm hopeful tomorrow that some of those larger stores, citizens will stay away from those larger stores, because we could really flatten this curve out and make it very low impact on us if we all just take it serious right now. It really could. And the other three hospitals have been great to work with, so it's not all about Presque. The other three hospitals are really coming together, which is great.
Great.
Greg, we really appreciate the time you spent with us tonight, and I'm not cutting this off. I'm just going to invite anybody else to comment. Any other counselor that wants to ask Greg a question, now is a good time. Greg, is there anything else you want to add before we end this tonight? And again, thank you for coming.
Oh, absolutely. So Martin's got my contact information, and do not hesitate. If you're, literally, I'll take all kinds of questions, and you can text me, you can call me, you can email me. If you've got a concern, or if you get an idea, or you thought of something, call me. We'll take that information.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure that the community of Presque will reach out and support Northern Light Health any way they can, just as Mr. Crowley has up at NMCC. And if you don't mind, we'd like to invite you back in 30 days for the next meeting, and we'll do the same thing all over again and give us an update.
Absolutely.
Hey, Kevin,
Yes,
can I ask a question to Greg?
go ahead.
Greg, do you have a timeline that you're looking at for this to all maybe stop and us be completely through it? Do you have any idea on that?
Well, I do. It's based on the models that we're utilizing. We'll be at the peak of this. Let me see. Hold on a second. I saved this to look at. One moment. We'll be at the peak of this on the 23rd of June. That's my expectation, and we'll start dropping after that. So I would say. I'd say by mid-July, this is going to get back to a reasonable level. It'll still be happening, but it's not going to be, we'll have our arms around it by mid-July, I think.
Is that the whole state of Maine you're
No,
looking at?
that's us in the county.
Here in the county.
Here in the county, because we're getting a later start, thank goodness, because we don't have any yet. But that's what I would plan for, is that it's going to be that, that mid-June, mid to late June, when we can say that the worst is behind us.
Okay, thank you very much.
And by the way, I'm not an epidemiologist. Those are the numbers I'm working with so that we can
Right.
plan. There's a lot of guys smarter than me that would have maybe different.
Right, that's not set in stone. I can't hold you to it. Okay, thank you.
All righty, I enjoyed this. Again, reach out to me if you have any thoughts or questions.
Again, thank you, Greg LaFrancois from Northern Light Health, for joining us this evening, and I hope to see him again in 30 days with more updates and possibly some more good news of no cases. Oh, thank you.
All right, Joe.
So-
Take care.
Thanks, Greg.
Let's mute the microphones for counselors, or for everybody except counselors again, and go to item 17. This is our city ethics policy. Martin can talk us through item 17 a little bit.
Sure, Council. What's in front of you is the existing Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy for the City of Presque. It was adopted back in 2007, back in March, when Nancy Nichols was a clerk. So what I've done is I put that in front of you. There are 11 different points that we use for city councilors, city employees, and also the representatives on various boards and committees. It's something that we've never had councilors sign, and so there's a signature page. Now, along with this also is something that I have done with new councilors. It's the freedom of access training. Basically, if someone does have a question, there is a policy online. There is a state requirement. So for new councilors, that is something I have done and have signature pages, but I think it is good to have, to do a refresher on that. So there is a training online. It's at www.maine.gov /FOAA/FAQ. It covers what happens when someone does do a Freedom of Information Act. We do get them maybe once a month or so, and those are something that I handle and I address. So there is a specific timeline. We do have to respond that we receive any requests, whether it be oral, with over the internet, or through social media, and we have a time frame to do that. Typically, most of these are very simple questions we can easily do. We don't require people to file a Freedom of Information Act. Typically, 90% of the questions they can find right online. I believe most of the due to the fact we don't have many requests, they can find that information right online. So typically, they're budgetary type questions that we have. Payroll seems to be a common one. How much the bid specs. So we have been putting the bid results up online so people can see what our bid results are, and that's been very helpful to feed that information out. So we look to continue that. So after council and other various members do go online and do the training, I'd ask for them to sign this.
So the origination for this item began in an agenda meeting a month or two ago, and we didn't get it in last month's agenda, but we have it in front of us tonight. And just for instance, I really asked for this to be done because I wasn't around in 2007, and I didn't look at the entire thing that was presented at that point. And I really think it's a great refresher for all of us to take a look at. It doesn't call into question anything that's currently going on right now, especially in view of today's world. But I think it's good for us to refresh ourselves. And if we don't have a copy of this, request it from Martin's office. Maybe he can email it to you. And hopefully there's a document that we can all sign and date that says, that we're all on board with this. And we are anyway. I don't believe any of us really are. There's two separate things here to me. It's the code of conduct and then the freedom of information stuff. And I have no problem with either one of them. I'd be happy to sign up for that. So anybody else that's got any comments, you're welcome to speak. So Martin, is there any chance that we'll get a copy of this, or is the clerk passing that out for people to sign tonight, and then we can sign later?
Yeah, Council, what I could do is the same timeline for the goal setting session. I can do that at the same time frame.
Great, super. Anybody else have any more on 17? Mike, Randy, Craig?
All good.
Good.
Yep, thank you.
Jeff?
Good, Kevin, thank you.
Jake, all set? Okay. I'm not sure if I got everybody or not. I apologize if I left anybody else. The next item of business is the Chapman Riverside intersection. So this is regarding stop sign placement, I believe, and Martin can tell us about that.
Sure, Council. I'll try to cover this very briefly, the genesis that led up to this. But when we built the splash pad, and it continued on with the generous donation to include the new playground, we've noticed a lot more traffic. So basically 2 years ago, we started to take a look at this intersection, and there were definitely concerns about pedestrian safety. So we had a plan at the time to put in a crosswalk, which we did have painted, and we did have some minimum amount of signage. And that our second plan was to put up solar-powered lights like what we had at Umpy down in that crosswalk. That's bright and prominent. It's some of the largest signs we can get for pedestrian safety. The third thing that we have discussed with MDOT, and this has been ongoing, is looking at a three-way stop. So currently there is a stop on the Riverside, but on the other two entrances there's not. So what we have continually asked MDOT, and Chris Bollier has been one of the main contacts, is that we have had MDOT go down there and take a look at the traffic flow, and they did agree that a three-way stop would help reduce a pedestrian incident down at that area. So we're continuing to talk with the local engineer about this stop. They have confirmed that is a council decision, since it is within the urban compact zone to make that decision. So I know some other communities that have discussed this and have done it very quickly. So after a council meeting, the next day stop signs were put up, and unfortunately that has led some incidents in those communities. So the thing that I've learned from those other communities is to do this with a time span, do some public releases, make sure that the engineer comes down and helps design it. So talking with the other department heads, the COVID-19 pandemic has definitely delayed what we're looking at for stripe painting. So obviously the ground's frozen right now. To put in signposts would be difficult, but the other concern is getting the paint marks down there. So not only would we create a bar across the road for a stop ahead, but also do some markings further back to make people aware. So this is something we can try a temporary type thing, but right now, talking with staff and department heads and MDOT, they see the value of having a three-way stop. The only negative that they saw is the potential for things to back up, for traffic to back up, and potential for it to back up by St. Mary's Church onto Main Street for people going through. So it's a popular area, like when we see soccer games, baseball games happening in the area, and we've all seen the splash pad, how popular that's been. They are worried during certain summer months that could lead to a backup of traffic. So they would like to continue to look at the traffic counts again during those high times. So that's basically it in a nutshell. Looking for council guidance on how to move forward.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. Is there a counselor, before we open that up to council, I think that Jeff or Chris Bollier is here. Does Chris have anything he wants to add about that being the rec department guy here?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes, Chris, thanks.
Yeah, just the one thing, I don't know if we want to act on it quite tonight, but talking with the gentleman with DOT, he's going to bring it up at their next meeting to discuss it with the other heads there to get their feedback, and then they were going to provide that to us, and then we would again share that with you, hopefully for the next council meeting. But just so we, I want to make sure that everybody who has some input on it, we hear from them. So that's it.
Thank you, Chris. I think a couple weeks ago when we run our agenda meeting, we were considering having some sort of advertisement in the paper talking about a possible three-way stop at this intersection and letting the public know that in 30 days it was going to actually happen. And the reason why we wanted to do that on this April meeting was so that 30 days from now it's May, then a few weeks after that the splash pad opens and things are happening at the rec center on a higher volume. Obviously that may be somewhat pushed back because of COVID-19, but that's why we're talking about this tonight. And I basically want a sense from the other 6 people whether you want to proceed on this timeline or you want to do something else. So let's open that up for discussion.
Kevin, this is...
I'd like to move forward with it. I think it might make sense to have a public comment term for it, though, just to see if there's anyone strongly for or against it.
Okay. Yeah, how about anybody else?
Yeah, Kevin, this is Jeff. Yeah, I'm strongly for this. I'd like to get this going pretty much as soon as we can. I mean, once this whole COVID-19 thing blows over and people start getting out and about and warmer weather and more outdoor activity and just outdoor traffic in general, I think it's going to be pretty important to have a three-way intersection there and make it well noted to everybody in the community that, that this is going to be a busy place this summer. I mean, things are kind of crazy right now, but this will all blow over. And when it does, man, it is going to be busy. And I'd like to see that area be as safe as it could possibly be for pedestrians, children, everybody. So I'd like to get this rolling on the ASAP.
Great job, thanks. Jake?
I mean, yeah, I agree with what else has got to be done. Just going by there the last few years and seeing the number of kids down there, I mean, either we pay to have a crosswalk person there like we did at the outdoor pool, or we get those stop signs up.
Super, thank you. Doug?
Yes, no, I think that definitely needs to take place. And probably almost in hindsight with the building of the rec center, that probably should have been done sooner, of no fault of anyone. But no, if anything, I'd like to do it even sooner than this timeline we're talking about. But like the 30-day aspect of, I guess you can't put anything in the ground within 30 days, like you had said, but definitely to try and have those stop signs up by the time the splash pad's open. In their concern for potential traffic backup, I get that may happen, but so be it. This is this is for the safety of the kids. If there's that much traffic that it would cause a backup, can you imagine trying to cross that road then with that much traffic as a kid?
Awesome comments. Thank you very much. Craig?
I would echo that too. And, although I think the public's input is important, I think in this instance, if we take any other intersection in town, we generally haven't gone to a public comment period about those. And I do think this is certainly in the best interest of the children. But let it be well known that, if in the next few days the public wants to reach out to us about something, they certainly can do that, and we wouldn't preclude them from giving us their opinion. But I don't think I'd put it off 30 days in order to have a formal comment period.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. The only thing I was thinking, there could be there could be users, whether it's the people going to the dump, like our garbage truck people that might have a strong feeling and a reasoning behind that. But I agree, it's an important public safety thing.
Well, and if the 30-day window for comments, I mean, that's still going to put you May 1st, and when does that splash pad open? July? June?
Likely June. Yeah. Randy, do you have any other comments?
Well, I concur with all comments to this point, but I would remind everyone that there is a wonderful stopgap that exists down there with the crossing light, which is very visible, and if people using the crosswalk use the light, that half of, maybe even more of your danger disappears, because it is a very visible alarm to anyone driving to that intersection that there are people in the crosswalk.
Awesome. I think, Martin, at this point that we'd like to proceed with on public notice that we're considering putting a three-way stop, and I have emailed you about adding a sign below the stop sign that says three-way stop. I don't know if really that's in practice in Presque right now, but it's in practice in many other communities, including our sister community. And it just alerts drivers that when they're at the intersection that everybody's going to come to a stop, and they look at each other and proceed. So I'd like to see that added to this thing. And this in the newspaper or some sort of comments that we could put on the next agenda meeting, but really get it implemented as soon as, I don't see that there's enough votes here to not do this, so, I'd like to see this done as soon as we get the frost out of the ground and the painting can be done.
Question for you.
Go ahead.
Do you ever see, like news broadcasts almost kind of highlight things like that? You know, almost like that we could see if they could get a little news piece where they would discuss that, you know, out of safety concerns that we're considering putting this here and almost use them as our mouthpiece. I don't know if that would be inappropriate but I thought I would just put that out there.
Doug, that's totally appropriate, and I think the vehicle for that is our press release, and our public information officer and our staff can do that for us.
Okay, and then they pick up on that and do as they wish.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion, guys, before we move to the next thing? This was just for discussion only.
I'm good.
All right, great. Thank you for everybody's fantastic comments and for Chris and Martin for chipping in on this. It sounds to me like Chris wants to talk with MDOT and people, and I'm sure he'll get back to us if there's any objections, but I think we're going to be able to do this. The item 19 is our next item, and it's on dangerous buildings. I guess I'll start with Martin, and if there's any other staff that's present that want to chip in, they can certainly do that.
Thank you, Chair. There's three buildings that staff has made me aware, and you can see the memo is from George Howard, Code Enforcement Officer. There's three properties, 23 Howard, 71 Dyer, and 9 Allen. Similar to previous recommendations to have a public hearing, all three of these properties have been condemned. And what George has put together is the history of the property, that there's been some tax liens on two of these properties, and there are encumbered through other utility districts and through other organizations also. If you wanted to take a look at the pictures provided, 9 Allen Street, you can see that there's definitely some water damage that's inside, so obviously the fear of that is ongoing with mold. What we're looking for is life safety issues and other concerns. There's also electrical concerns with improper wiring that's done on this property also. On the exterior, you can also see signs of water damage and structural concerns of how this was constructed. They are quite significant concerns. On 29 Dyer Street, there was mold that was present that you can see on the picture all the way to the left. It is growing up the wall, so it's clear that this could be either from the roof or coming up from the ground up. The photo to the right shows that there's significant issues with the flooring, again from water damage. There's an exterior photo. There's also a sign of structural integrity issues with the stairs that have listed to one side that we see on this. The following page continues on with this. Definitely some subfloor issues that are occurring here that you can see from some of the plumbing pictures in the exterior. The last property that we're looking at is 23 Howard Street. You can see that there's some roof concerns that are leading to some, the picture on the left, you can see is correlated to the picture on the right, that there's some roof issues. The picture on the bottom right shows that there's structural issues from separation along the side. The last few photos shows, again, some water damage from the exterior. While the roof line looks good, there's definitely some issues with the chimney that we have, and it's banded together at some parts, but there's obviously concern that chimney could collapse on that structure on 23 Howard. So we're not looking for any council action at this point. What we're just simply looking for is the permission to go ahead and have a public hearing on May, at the May meeting. That would give staff time to notify these residents formally and put together a formal hearing.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to schedule a public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to schedule a public hearing for dangerous buildings for May 6, 2020.
Second.
Motion by Jeff and seconded by Randy. We'll call a roll. Doug? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Jake? Yes. Mike? Yes. Craig?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
I also vote yes, so 7-0. To schedule a public hearing for May 6th, this is City Council, next City Council meeting. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Council.
The next item of business is item 20 to discuss the ambulance, and I know that we've got a lot of material in front of us and emails about this. I know Daryl's waiting patiently in the wings. Thank you, Daryl, for joining us. Maybe Martin can talk about this first, and then Daryl can tell us where we're at, and we can open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Chair. One thing we have been looking for is great used models that we can have for our fleet. So Daryl and I have been continually looking at some options that are out there. What Daryl has put together is we currently have 4 units, 3 that we run regularly, and 1 is basically on standby. So what Daryl has put together, and I've emailed out earlier, is a list of our current units. Medic 10 is a 2010 with 134,000 miles on it. Medic 12 is a 2008 with 113,000 miles on it. Medic 14 is a 2016. It's one that we purchased once we started the ambulance for 187,000. That currently has 54,000 miles on it. And Medic 16 is a 2010 with 126,000 miles on it. So some of these we have purchased, obviously used. We did find an excellent deal on one that was from downstate, and the community saw that we were asking, looking for it, and over coffee I overheard a conversation, and I contacted the town manager downstate, and we got a reduced price of $7,500 for that 2010. I thought it was an excellent purchase. So what's included in your memo is a proposal for a demo unit, and what we currently have in revenue and we've been saving up for would cover the cost of replacing that. It's got very low mileage on it, but what Daryl has also come across is a community, I believe it's in Erie, Pennsylvania, that are actually looking at selling two units, and they're I believe they're 2013, Daryl, or is it 2007?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they're 13.
And those,
You have the floor, Daryl, go for it.
please.
So as Martin mentioned, it's a burst out truck, and a lot of maintenance systems. Since we bought it new. And so we're looking at $1,000 of maintenance over the last 2 years. So we just started looking at the options of how do we replace this truck, because it's nickel and diming us, plus the downtime hurts us. So we found that 2016 demo that Greenwood Fire Apparatus had, and they gave us a really good deal on it of $110,000. And at the time, that was and is a good deal. But over the last couple of days, as we've been continually looking about how we can find a better deal, we actually managed to come across the two 2013 650 trucks out of Erie, Pennsylvania, that a bar department that runs in the district is replaced. And they replace their trucks every 7 years.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with the trucks. They were originally asking $55,000 per unit. We talked with the chief, and he said, if you're looking at both of them, throw me a number and I'll see what the directors say. And so we threw them a number of 80,000, 30,000 less. We really didn't expect to get anything back. He emailed us back and said, if you make it 82, the board said they would like to help us out as a fire department, and we could have them for 82. 2,000 of that they increased it is actually going to the used sales dealer that commissioned to sell the trucks. So we can pick up those two trucks, which I assume you have the information in front of you, are extremely, extremely nice trucks in extremely nice condition, and they're honestly the trucks that most departments would drool about having, but can't because they can't afford them. So for us, in all honesty, we feel like we hit the jackpot. And these two trucks would replace Medic 10 and Medic 16, which is the old truck we paid $7,500 for, which in turn would give us 7, 8, 9 years out of those trucks that I don't have to come before you, hopefully, say we need to start replacing an ambulance in 21, another ambulance in 22. This really sets us up long term. I'm talking 6 to 7 years. We wouldn't have to start talking about the 2008 4x4. So at the end of the day, this really puts our department with good equipment on solid ground and secures us for quite a few years down the road where we got to start looking at replacement. So I feel that this is, like again, is the jackpot, and it's something that we should really seriously consider, so that we're not coming to you in 21 and 22 asking for input.
How many miles are on those trucks?
Thank you. I know that Doug has got a lot of good input on this and a lot of good questions, and since Doug, you led the way on the research on this, I'd like to have you ask the questions to Daryl.
Well, I don't know if I led the way, but I want to make sure that our residents have proper ambulance coverage. So this has always been a important part for me. But I guess part of and maybe I'm jumping too far ahead, but what do we do with the two that we're replacing? The Medic 10, I guess, is my bigger concern, that we've got $65,000 and plus some maintenance, some repairs. Dale, do you know how long ago we bought that?
What was that again?
On Medic 10, do you know how long ago we bought that, or how long we've owned it?
That truck when we first started, so it was in 2017. We started, I think, in April of 2017. So we bought that truck in 2017 as one of the original 3 that we brought into the station.
Okay. And I mean, these maintenance issues, and I mean Jeff's on here too, but they've got diesel engines. Is that due to that, because these other 2 are diesel as well?
No, well, I honestly, anything and everything that could go wrong with the truck, from the engine to electrical systems to air conditioning, has just keep continually coming up. And as an example, we put almost $1,000 into it in February for engine problems. We didn't run the truck a month, and they went out yesterday, and they come back and they said, this truck is running so bad, we didn't think we were going to make it to the call and back, and so we parked it again. So, all honesty, right now it is parked again, and we will decide whether we send it to a shop to put some more money into it, or we'll see what council decides tonight, maybe say, you know what, let's just stop throwing money at this and move forward. So that's where we're at. What we do with those 2 trucks, Medic 16 is not a bad truck. It's got some age, it's got some miles, it's got some rust issues, but as an example, with the Marcel, the Central Roof Stick Ambulance Service starting up, they may have an interest in having a spare or a backup, and we may be able to sell that to them. Or we can put it on
out in the market, and maybe some construction crew out there thinks that it would make a good utility truck for them, or even another fire department to make a mini rescue truck out of. So, you know, we would love to try to get as much funding as we could back out of those vehicles. But Medic 10, I honestly would not feel very good about selling it to some other fire department or some other service, because I know what kind of issues they're gonna have, and I would feel guilty.
Yeah. There was a couple that had some oil problems. That was one of them?
No, Medic 12 is the one that has a very slight oil leak in it. Our mechanic here replaced valve cover gaskets. That took care of some of the leak, but it still has a very minor leak. That truck we actually is a 2008 4x4 ambulance. It's the only four-wheel drive unit we have, and I like that truck, and we want to keep that truck for just as long as we can. That truck is probably the most expensive vehicle we own to try to replace as is today. That truck is over $290,000. So what we did was this year, thanks to the help of Kim, who spent a lot of time doing a lot of research and writing, well, she bugged me quite a bit too, but wrote a grant through the AFG. So what our hope is that we can get that truck replaced through an AFG grant, so we're only spending 5% of the cost of that truck. If we do not get the grant, no harm, no foul, we'll keep running the truck. We're not asking to replace it, and next year we'll reapply, and the year after that we'll reapply. Eventually down the road, if we can't get the grant, we're gonna have to look at it. But that's not a, oh my, we gotta replace this now. All we're hoping is if we start early enough, they won't tell us no 3 or 4 years in a row. So we're trying to do that through AFG, but if we don't get it, no harm, no foul, other than a lot of time and effort.
Okay, and that was the only one that had that problem. The other one was Medic 10 that we've already discussed.
Correct.
Yeah. I know I had brought up, and Martin, I don't know how you got all this information back to us here in an hour with that short notice, but thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But I had brought up, and maybe this is me just being overly concerned, I want to make sure that we've got some heavy-duty 4x4 ambulance on staff at some point, just because of where we're going. But this one seems to be running fine, so what you're saying. So I guess, I mean, so that Medic 10, I mean, so what do you do with that?
We're gonna, what it would be is to actually strip everything that's of any value off of it, to put into spares so that we have them for parts and replacements. As an example, Medic 10 came with a electric lift for lifting the oxygen tanks in and out of the truck, which are big and heavy units. We want to pull that out of that unit and put it in one of these new units. So we want to take the things that are of value. And then we would look at the Braun dealer, because it's a Braun ambulance, Autotronics, to see if they might want to buy that box back, because they could remount that box on the truck and sell it.
Okay.
So Daryl, why wouldn't we just keep the box, and then when we need an ambulance again in a few years, we'd have a box?
We could do that as long as we had a place to store it. We absolutely could do that, but we really don't need to, because, and I'll give you an example why, the 2 ambulances that we're purchasing, plus our 14, are all new, never been reboxed. So I don't see us ever needing 5 ambulances, so the next time we do a unit, it'll probably be a remount. It'll just be off one of those boxes we already have. So there really would be no reason to, but we absolutely could if we had a place to store it.
In Mars Hill, I know this has all happened quite quickly, but I mean, with one department in Southern Maine giving us a deal, I would love to be able to help someone else out. Do you know you bought that for $7,500, and then I think we painted it and did a few other things. Do you know what we've roughly got in it?
I'm going to say I think we ended up with $10,000 into it. The paint job, thanks to the highway department, was done for free, and I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had 30. Well, if you see the paint job, you wouldn't say that, but I think the decaling was $3,500. So we have like $10,000 invested in that truck.
Yeah. Well, I I mean, and that would also help offset. I mean, you could get 10, you know, you sell it to them for what we got in it, and then I don't know if you'd be able to get another 5 or 10 out of Medic 10 by the time you put everything together. I mean, I have no idea if that's even right, but I mean, they'd be buying those 2 other ones for 60 grand, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, those units are 41,000 a piece, and they're a $300,000 truck today. So I mean, you know, this is like I said, we hit the jackpot, and then, you know, we threw around the idea and just threw it around of let's keep 6 or let's keep 16 if the highway could store it, and if we need a truck because we got one down, we have it. If Marshville needs a truck, we loan it to them. Kind of make it a loaner for all the ambulance services, but at the end of the day, I'm not real fond with that, as I got a feeling we'd be the ones doing all the maintenance and putting the costs into it. So I would prefer, if we can, to sell it to those departments that have a need for it.
Yeah, I would just, if we go this route, I'd want to hold on to those for a couple months after we get those new ones and make sure they're as good as they sound.
And just to give everyone a little bit more history, like when we started the ambulance, we bought one ambulance that was it a light demo or brand new, Daryl? I forget.
It was a demo, but it was brand new. It was a 2016, so it was pretty much brand new.
And then we bought one that, you know, had mid-level mileage, and then we had one that we got really cheap that had a lot of mileage, but we also had Crown as a backup. We were only doing Presque. We had 3 ambulances, one good, one okay, one not great. Now we're taking care of 6 or 7 communities. We're running a lot more calls. I think we got to have equipment that we can trust, and for me, this is a no-brainer. I would vote yes on it very quickly.
Daryl, how many miles are on that ambulance?
Which one?
The ones that you're thinking of buying, the 2013s.
The 3013 one has 66,000 miles. The other one has 64,000 miles. But Jeff, if you can hear me, these have a 6.6-liter Detroit Cummins motor. And the research we found online, one of those motors, they're a very strong, stable motor. 200,000 miles is not anything that we should be worried about. Does that sound correct, Jeff?
Yeah, Daryl, I got you on that, and I couldn't agree more. Then these 2 ambulances are F650 chassis, correct?
Correct.
Single cab option, extra cab. What's the cab configuration?
They're a single cab.
Okay.
Kids-wise, they're a little bit bigger than the Medic 14. The box is identical. The cab might be just a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
A foot longer.
I'm looking at one right now on my phone. Yeah, that's a nice looking rig, and I think it would provide us with a more than capable vehicle for what we need. It's big enough, so that gives a little bit of safety factor as well. You know, especially for running around our roads in the wintertime, going through Moose Alley and everything else. It's a pretty beefy looking vehicle. I like the idea of those 2 2013 F650s. The price seems okay. Do you have any idea of what the maintenance upkeep is on them? I mean, are these things good for brakes? They got good rubber? Are they going to pass a commercial vehicle inspection with no issues? Or are we getting these things just in time to start to rebuild axles?
I talked to the chief maintenance records since they were new. He says there is absolutely nothing wrong with the trucks, nothing in line that's due for replacement or repair, like brakes or anything like that. The trucks are in good condition. He says the district key is in. Simply at 7 years, those ambulance comes out, and he gets 2 new ones. And he got 2 new ones, and they went out. But he says there's absolutely nothing wrong with the truck. Either truck. If you want to fly in, I'll take you out of the airport. Drive home, no problem.
Yeah, I think those are some nice trucks. That's a good idea. I would be behind the idea of getting 2 ambulances, especially with the Cummins power and the chassis that they're on. And if they're in as good a shape as they say that they're in, it seems like a pretty decent idea.
Daryl, I'll chip in for a second and stuff. Have you seen pictures of the machine?
Yeah, he has sent us all kinds of pictures inside and out all the way around. I sent some to Martin, and if I have your emails, I can send you what I have. But I can tell you this, if you go online, or I can send you the link, you can look at them if they haven't pulled them off yet. But I have shown the crews here, which might have been a mistake, and they are excited about these trucks. They are very excited about them. One, because of the size of the box and the room they have to work in, especially if you have serious patients and you've got 2 or 3 medics in the truck. These will build for those kinds of scenarios. So they might be a little too excited. I may have jumped the gun. I probably shouldn't have showed them until after I knew what was going to happen tonight. But I can tell you from staff standpoint,
We have anything you want to say?
you see me?
Yeah, you got anything you want to add, Jake?
I was just looking at pictures. I mean, somehow I'm gonna pretend like I know a whole lot about an ambulance, but I mean, I'm gonna have to defer to Jeff on this one. They do look nice. I mean, that's about all I can say. And then, the idea of getting on a 7-year cycle or close to a 7-year cycle, or being able to, get rid of our older units, obviously, is a great idea. So.
I am very proud of the collaborative effort here tonight, and nobody's got an agenda. Everybody's trying to do the best in the community, which is all what we're elected for. And, what we were originally talking about was buying a 16 demo for 110, and now all of a sudden we've got an opportunity to spend 82 for 2 really nice machines that I absolutely have the faith of our public safety people that they've vetted this. They're enthusiastic, and so am I, and I appreciate everything that's been talked about and discussed here tonight. And I just need to know where we go next. I mean, these aren't going to last forever, and I think we got to jump on these guys.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Did you say that we've got more than this in our reserves already set aside?
I thought it was around 110,000 last time I looked at it, but Martin, can you?
15,000.
Correct. It's just under 116,000. And one thing I don't know if the other counselors know, I believe it was the chair that asked me about interest rates right now for used vehicles, and I did have the finance director look into that. The rates, of course, right now are pretty good. We did get a quote for 1.5%. So if we did go forward with this purchase, it would reduce our reserve funds to around 34,000. But I don't know if it's the council's desire to look at a low interest loan of 1.5%. So that therefore we do have that money in reserve in case there is some incident that we have with one of these other that we still have money to move forward.
And if you would allow me, guys, to chip in, I just wanted to look at an option just to hold our cash in reserve because interest rates are extremely low. If we took a loan out, we could pay it off in a year or 2 if the coast is clear and we decide that that's what we want to do and pay them down. But 1.5 or a 0%-ish loan is cheap money.
Agreed.
I'd rather just pay for them. If we take a loan out, we're just going to make our budgets harder to balance in future years.
Yeah, I guess I'd tend to agree with Mike. I'd agree that, if then you have some fairly decent units going forward for a little while, the 34,000 should kind of pay for a motor or other things that maybe might crop up. But I don't think we're going to buy a whole unit, and we have some time to put money away into the reserve like we've been doing and build it back up. So I guess I'd be more for just buying them outright and not having to worry about that in November in the budget.
Plus, we expect to get some back.
Jeff, what do you say?
the sale of the other two, we'll put back in the reserve.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you put that back in the reserve if you sell the other ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Not a problem with me, guys. I just wanted to put the option out there.
It sounds, almost too good to be true, and I hate to jump on, spur of the moment type thing, but I've also been taught that when you see a deal like that, you grab it. So.
Yeah, so Martin, what do you need from us now?
I guess a motion to purchase the two 2013 F-650 diesels from the Pennsylvania Fire Company, and I'm guessing that it's to purchase it with reserve funds.
Yeah, well, I would make the motion of what Martin just enumerated in his information.
Yeah, I'll second that. So motion by Craig, second by Kevin, and I'll call the roll. Is there any further discussion before we vote?
Do we need to also allocate funds to get them here?
That's a great question. We're still looking at that at this point on how we're going to pick those up. So it's definitely some conversations I'm going to have to see. But right now, what I'm thinking is it's operational funds that we would be using to pick those up.
Where are they located?
Does it require a certain license to get them here?
Erie.
Erie?
Yep, Erie. I'm sorry, Kevin. I didn't catch that.
I'm just asking if does it require a certain license to drive them here?
No, not those.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
What we would do is we will contact that fire chief and let him know that we want to move forward, and he can send us all of the vehicle information, VIN number, and all that other stuff, and then we register and we can for sure before we ever get to drive them back, or if we sell them, but we can make sure all that is in line, so before we ever take off. So the option is, he said if we could fly into Houston, he would come here to pick us up and drive them back home. We could look at a car hauler to see if anybody might be down that way that would be willing to bring them back, or the third option is drive down, pick them up, drive back. So we need to look at how we can do it as cost efficiently as possible, but also with the COVID, we probably won't be doing much for the next month, other than I would like to lock them up so we don't lose them.
Yeah.
Daryl?
Yeah, I agree, Dale.
Daryl, I would talk to our Chamberlain. I bought a skid steer this summer out of Wisconsin, and they were dead heading back, and they charged me $1,700 from Wisconsin.
That was who again?
RF Chamberlain.
Okay. Okay.
Is there any other discussion? I'll call the roll for a vote. Doug?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Randy?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. I think this is a tremendous opportunity, Daryl, and I thank you so much for digging through these one more time. You're going to get two ambulances that are in very, very good condition, and you're going to get a couple of diesels which have extremely long life compared to the gas trucks. So I've had Cummins vehicles in the past that are well over 250,000, and they go way past 300 if you change the oil right. So looking forward to seeing this happen for our community and our residents that we're serving with EMS. Thank you very much, everybody, for a great discussion. We went a little bit beyond my 10 minutes, but I appreciate the discussion and the candor. And with that, before we move to the manager's report,
Yes.
as the chairman Tanya, Brad, Louis, Chris, Lori, Daryl, Kim, and our great IT host, temporary Galen Lively, for attending our meeting tonight and contributing and being present. This was an uncertain time for us and an uncertain electronic meeting that could not have been pulled together any better, and I am very, very enthusiastic and happy with the result and how smooth this meeting is. And I have to again thank Martin and Galen for all of the work that they've done behind the scenes. I know it's been tens of hours and a lot of anxiety to put this together tonight. This is the new normal for us for a while, and until the opportunity comes for us to be back together again. This works. We don't have to have video. I'm sure that everybody would love to see what I'm doing right now behind the camera, but I'm basically talking on my cell phone and watching everybody else. So you don't know how many clothes I've got on, and that's fine. So with that being said, I'd like to talk to the manager and have him issue a manager's report for this evening.
Well, thank you, Chair. I appreciate those kind words. I do want to let the council and people watching at home that I really appreciate staff and the amount of volunteers and the board members that have been helping out during this time and rolling with the changes for this new normal. I'm very proud of our community. What I've been involved in, other staff members, are the regular phone calls, meetings like this with Maine CDC. They've been doing a weekly meeting specifically for communities. Like to thank the medical community and specifically Greg LaFrancois for agreeing to be part of this and providing information and working with us. The local Aroostook Emergency Management Agency, Darren Woods, has been phenomenal, giving information, letting know what's happening throughout the state and nationally. And also there's been regular conversations with the Aroostook managers to see what everyone is doing and to stay on top of this. Most importantly, to provide hope and to calm nerves and to promote sound mind through this process. So really a lot of appreciation for our neighbors. And that's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, sir. I know that Louis has been in the meeting tonight, and I wanted to see if I could unmute the microphone and ask him a question. Since it was raised by Greg LaFrancois earlier about big box stores, what is Lewis's and the city's position on the big box? Like, for instance, if he could tell us how many people are allowed in Walmart right now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So, based on the square footage that we have in the assessing records, I did post that out on Facebook, but Walmart, Lowe's are 100. Shop and Save is 50. And then the other grocery stores, most of them were 15. The IGA, Josh is working on recalculating his square footage. My number's showing at 5. He believes he qualifies for 15, and we're going to continue that discussion.
Okay.
Hopefully he does make the 15. So.
Okay, so sometime in the near future that Walmart employees will be posted at the door so that no more than 100 people are inside the store at any one time.
Everything I've seen is they plan on being on board with that tomorrow morning.
Okay. And this is just a point of information for people that are interested in seeing that. I had not seen the Facebook thing, and the social distancing is an effective way to cut down or curtail the spread of the COVID-19 virus. And after Greg mentioned earlier tonight, he was gracious enough to be with us and talk to us, but he mentioned those stores in particular as hot points, and I think anybody that doesn't respect the 6-foot distance rule is jeopardizing themselves and everybody else. But thank you for that information. believe is May 5. Hold on. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it's Wednesday, May 6th at 6 p.m. And I am assured that we will be 100% electronic meeting at that point, per the governor's rule. So, that being said, I'd like to move to executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056E to discuss negotiations. And that being said, Martin, I'd like to hear what you want us to do next as far as Zoom goes.
Yes, Council, what we're going to do is log off for the time being, so we make sure it's that this discussion is just with Council.
So when we log off, will you email us the new Zoom?
Yes, definitely, the contact information. Yep, Galen's standing by for that.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you to the public for participating tonight.